0 for 3, baby. I am 0 for 3 on play-in predictions so far. I have not gotten a single game correct. I do not understand how college people do this single game elimination shit because I truly cannot even wrap my head around it. What's the point of making a prediction if it's just going to be one fucking game? This was awesome. Very good game, I think. I'm talking about the Sixers versus Heat, of course. First half of this game kind of stunk ass. It was kind of terrible. But in the second half, the Sixers responded to the zone from the Miami Heat that was plaguing them for that entire first half. And they managed to not only make the comeback, but make for one of the more impressive wins that I have ever seen from them, and in particular Joel Embiid in a postseason type setting. Obviously, there's constantly the whether or not the play-in is the playoffs or not, whatever you may define it as. Joel Embiid played really well within the context of what was happening here, and of course that's what all eyes are on at this point. After last year's disappointing blunder versus the Boston Celtics in a series that the Sixers very much should have won, there has been a lot of discourse around Joel Embiid's playoff performances, and not that there wasn't that discourse before, but the fact that the consistent disappointment has piled on and on and on, especially with Embiid facing teams with good reputations, as the Miami Heat, of course, have. Things don't necessarily go all that well more often than not. Also, yet again, Joel Embiid's dealing with an injury going into this postseason setting, and he definitely didn't look like he was at his physical best. There's kind of a version of Embiid that you can see whenever he is dealing with an injury, where he goes from being this fairly agile giant to just a giant, and just all the limitations that come with being a giant suddenly being much more applicable to him than they are otherwise. And that was clear in this game, and that resulted in him overall not having a great scoring performance, but he managed to impact the game with his scoring later on, but was still a positive defender, still making good reads, and that's really the key thing with Embiid, because the main reason, and you're going to hear me talk about this a lot as this postseason goes along, because frankly, this is the number one thing I have my eye on. How Embiid handles dealing with pressure on the ball will determine how far Philadelphia can go. Truly, they could go all the way to the finals as far as I'm concerned if he just processes things very well. No pun intended there, but the irony of Joel Embiid's career is that processing has been probably his biggest weakness. But this year, under the tutelage of Nick Nurse, with a system that utilizes him more as a playmaking hub out of the high pick and roll, as a handoff option to Tyrese Maxey, very often the Maxey throws it to Embiid and runs to the ball thing that's becoming more and more prevalent in the NBA. That stuff has just made Embiid a better decision maker. As the season has gone along, he's done more and more of that type of thing, getting the reps in and getting better at dealing with a double team. I always talk about the relationship between scoring and playmaking, rather, being the kind of scorer who gets the gravity and the attention of a defense where you're regularly getting two defenders on the ball. That's something that you can take advantage of to get clean looks, and you got to actually do that. For the most part, Embiid did that. He didn't really turn the ball over. He finished the game with 3 turnovers, and that's in spite of the fact that Jimmy Butler was putting his hand in the cookie jar as much as possible. There were 2 different instances to start the game, and this was when the Sixers were really struggling with the zone, was in that first half. But Embiid had it on the elbow, and he got doubled, and he just held the ball out here where neither of his 2 defenders could get to, and he just waited for the open opportunity. He didn't force anything. He didn't panic. He just skipped past it to Tyrese Maxey, and he hit a pull-up 3. Jimmy then stole the ball from him for I think his 3rd steal in the first quarter. He finished the game with 5. But that aside, pretty much since then, I really didn't feel like Embiid struggled to take care of the ball. His other 2 turnovers were just, turnovers happen sometimes. Kick out to Batum that happened late in the 4th quarter that was huge. Another really big one was he threw the ball center of basically in the restricted area to Kelly Oubre, who had boxed a guy out, and he got an and one out of that. Just really good decision making late. And that is really the deciding factor for Philadelphia. I can't illustrate that enough. But after making good decisions with the ball, in spite of the fact that he was not scoring, he did get to the free throw line a little bit, but he really wasn't getting easy touches. He didn't get into his mid-range bag really at all. If I had to guess, I don't even know if he hit a mid-range shot this entire game, frankly, which is really says a lot, because that's most of, if not most, it's 40% of where Embiid's offense comes from. but the zone was preventing him from getting to his spots. First of all, they didn't go to Bam on him that much. There were definitely possessions where Bam was defending Embiid, but whether it was Kevin Love or Jaime Jaquez or Jimmy Butler or Haywood Highsmith, they were having these bigger, stronger wings. Kevin Love's a big man, but other than him, the rest of these guys being wings, Kevin Love's an undersized big, especially defending Joel frickin' Embiid. Enough that the Embiid couldn't just easily push them out of the way, and then they were just holding their own against him in the post, while with the positioning of the zone and the fact that the Sixers other players not named Joel Embiid just did not know what to do with this zone, there was very ample opportunity to actually get the ball to him, because there was almost always a hand that was going to be in either the passing lane or just hounding the ball handler. Whatever it may be, there was always pressure on the ball, and that was just making it difficult to get into the flow of the offense. As a result, there was a lot of players shooting the ball for Philadelphia that you probably otherwise wouldn't want. A lot of times where Embiid was just literally not even touching the ball in the first half, and that's just not good. Even if he is injured and he's not really getting in his scoring bag as much, he is at the very least someone who's going to draw the attention of the defense and can make plays from there, which of course is what happened in the second half more and more, as they found the way to just be like, look, good things happen if Embiid has the ball, so we're going to less try to get him in these specific positions and just first and foremost get him the fucking ball. And when that was happening, good things were happening all the time, whether it was because he created an advantage or, well, I guess it would be him creating an advantage regardless, whether it was because the defense's attention was on him when he had the ball and he was able to get some opportunity there, or he was just able to actually score, especially these threes at the top of the key. Some huge threes, one at the start of the fourth quarter at around the 11-minute mark, and then again like two or 3 minutes into the game, just two top of the key threes. They left them wide open. Doris Burke was saying on the broadcast, which I gotta say, this broadcast call, one of the best broadcast trios I've ever seen. Not the best showing today necessarily, but just in general, I'm very happy to see this group together. But she was like, look, if you're scoring and your interior presence isn't necessarily working the way that it used to, you got to hit jumpers. He hit those fucking jumpers. Later on, he gets an and one on a putback. It was a pretty crazy one because it was a long rebound. Kind of just threw it up off of the bump and it went through the net. Typical Joel Embiid drawing foul shit. After that, let me just read the last couple of minutes of the game, like what happened. So Nick Batum was going off. That's another big thing. He hit 6 3-pointers in this game. He finished with 20 points. It did end up resulting in him taking some shots where it's like, hey, you're Nick Batum. Don't take that shot. Like one really deep 3-pointer, one mid-range pull-up that he took that was just not good, which I actually think resulted in the Embiid and one. So, butterfly effect and all that, you're fine with it. But I was like, Nick Batum, what the fuck are you doing, dog? Why is Nick Batum ever taking a mid-range pull-up in 2024? But other than that, he was fantastic and a key factor in them winning. So I'm not trying to harp on just the negative thing that he did. Hitting a bunch of threes, really positive defender. Honestly, Nick Batum I've thought was one of the more underrated role players in the entire league. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I should have picked him to be my most underrated player on the Sixers, but that's neither here nor there. But because of Batum's shooting, after a 9-0 run from the Philadelphia 76ers in the third quarter, there was this crazy maxi layup where he went up with his right hand. I think it might have been the reverse of this, but he went up with his right hand and I think he was going to short arm it. It was going to be a little bit off, and then his left hand following behind tips in, like he's going up like this, loses it, and then he smacks it with this hand, and that gets it to go in. Wild shot there. Jaime hit a 3 to end the third quarter, and I was like, oh shit, the momentum might be in Miami's favor. In general, Jaime Jaquez for the Heat had a very, very, very good game. Really, really efficient. But the offense for the Heat started to sour real quick as Jimmy Butler, who, as I mentioned earlier, dealt with that knee injury, his ability to impact the game decreased as the game went along. You really felt the impact starting to build, and as a result, more and more, the Heat were going to Tyler Hero. Not that they weren't going to Tyler throughout this game, but it really felt like it became the Tyler Hero show. He was playing hero ball, if you will, and some of this went well. He hit a crossover mid-range shot. I think he got the crowd to do some oohs and ahs. Big pull-up 3-pointer, which I think was his second of the game, and he hit 2 more from there. So he hit some big shots, but he also took some bad shots and he also missed some big shots. And overall, he had a very inefficient performance. After Embiid gets the and one on the putback, Haywood Highsmith hits a floater to tie the game. Tyler Hero with the ball gets a backcourt violation. I saw some debate as to whether or not this was Nicholas Batum getting away with a foul because he definitely touched his hip a little bit. But as far as I'm concerned, it was kind of like the Jordan 98 thing where I was like, just because there's contact doesn't mean there's an a dramatic amount of force behind it. I don't know. It kind of just looked to me like Tyler didn't realize that he was quite that far back on the court. After that violation, Embiid, he gets the dime to Kelly Oubre. That puts them up. They're up 3 from that point after Oubre hits the free throw, and then Batum actually blocks a Tyler Hero 3, another way he had his fingerprints on this game, and Philadelphia wins, which means they are going to be playing the New York Knicks in round 2. I gotta say, I don't necessarily feel good about them going into this series because while I feel pretty good about how they played in this game, you also got a hobbled Jimmy Butler. Obviously, you had a hobbled Joel Embiid, but realistically, you're probably also going to have that to some degree, at least as the series goes along. Maybe it'll get better, but you're going to be dealing with that in the series against the New York Knicks. So Embiid definitely looks hobbled. I think he literally did everything he could do in the context of this game. Also, something else they were talking about on the broadcast is Miami is just not a team that you want to face if you're injured. They're a physical team, and they're like cruel enough that they will intentionally put you in situations that will make you really feel that injury. They're going to try to make him run and things like that. They especially tried to attack him in space. A lot of Tyler Hero's shot attempts were him pulling up on drop coverage from Embiid. Luckily for Philadelphia, Tyler was missing a lot of these shots, but there were some open opportunities available and some big shots from Tyler because Embiid just was not able to step up on the level of the screen in any capacity. Not that he's super strong in that area to begin with, but he was like especially slow-footed in this context. So that doesn't make me feel good. The fact that it took the Sixers like that entire first half to even, they had to go through a first half of getting dicked on to like even remotely understand the zone. And like Alex Hoops, you may know him, friend of the show on Twitter, was like, this is on the scouting report. Everyone knows the Heat are going to play zone, man. That's kind of their thing. How were you not prepared for this in any capacity? Like, it truly seemed like they didn't even practice it. Luckily, they responded really well in the second half. I think they were talking about at the halftime that, like, the Sixers' record trailing at half was, like, abysmal. So it looked like they were probably going to lose this one. But, hey, they stepped up. Huge shooting from Batum. Level play from Embiid despite playing through the injury. All around, excellent performance from the Philadelphia 76ers. On the Miami Heat's part, I definitely have a couple of complaints that I didn't mention already. Really, it's 2 main ones. First of all, no Duncan Robinson. I understand the defensive approach that they had here, and they certainly obviously had a very impactful defense in this one. 37 points at halftime is crazy in the year of 2024. But I feel like you had enough defense that you could have played Duncan Robinson at least a little bit in some situations. And there was especially times with Miami where their offense was so garbage, and they really, really could have benefited from just having a sniper out there who's also a really good processing, really good decision maker. Specifically Haywood Highsmith, every time he was open, brick. And every time he was open, he was open. Like, they were not worried about him taking threes whatsoever. 0 for 4 from outside in that one. Not that Duncan would get the same looks, but just imagining him out there to space the floor instead of someone that the defense is very comfortable leaving wide open. That is the ideal way. That's ideal for Philly, basically. And they kind of conceded that, and I don't think they needed to. I think you still could have had fine enough defense. Maybe he wasn't, I guess Eric maybe wasn't that confident in Duncan's ability to play the zone, but I don't know. I remember him playing it fine enough already. I understand that Duncan is like not the strongest defender in the world, but he's a big guy and he's not stupid. I mentioned Jaime playing well, but I felt like he probably should have played a little bit more and should have been a little bit more involved in the action. And the last thing is Bam Adebayo played 30 minutes. Don't know about that, dog. I mean, I was like, did he have foul trouble? But I looked, he had 3 fouls on the game. Maybe he got them early and that affected his minutes and I missed that. But I don't think he got hurt. played 30 minutes. He should play more than that. If there's something that I am missing as to why that happened, my bad, but Jimmy Butler played like 37 minutes after looking like he may have just had a career-ending injury. So I don't understand why Bam didn't play at all. Or didn't play more than at least 35 minutes, for God's sakes. Joel Embiid had to have played that much, and he was playing injured. So I don't understand why the fuck that happened. I don't understand how Duncan got a DNP when coach's decision, when like he was not a sixth man of the year candidate, but like one of the better six men in the entire NBA. It just perplexes me. I really don't understand what the point of that was. But yeah, this was a really good game. 0 for 3 on predictions. I don't care though. I really like this Sixers team when things are going well. Tobias Harris annoys me. I think that's pretty universal when people watch the Sixers. But when Embiid is not just a disaster when there are two on the ball, it makes them look like they can actually win against just about anybody. I think the Knicks are going to beat them even without Julius Randle, which is a caveat that's not even necessarily not a positive one. But yeah, let's move on to the Hawks versus Bulls game, I guess. God damn it. They got me. Son of a bitch, they got me. I think I like the Bulls. Oh, it hurts to say that. I think I might like the Bulls again. It shouldn't hurt to say that I like my own team, but I've been so committed to hating on them that I just can't even fucking comprehend that I actually think I like this team again. Man, wow. The Chicago Bulls just beat the hell out of the Atlanta Hawks. They were pretty much in control of the game almost the entire way, especially by the time they got halfway through the third quarter, where it got to be like a 20-point deficit. And then it was pretty much just waiting for the game to end from there. Where do I begin? I got to talk about Ayo and Kobe. Really, I kind of... This is the way it's probably going to go more often than not, where there's one game where I have less to say every time just because I kind of get a little bit of just documenting every little thing that I see. I don't have a lot to say about this one, but I do have a lot to say about Ayo and Kobe White. Ayo specifically, because the Kobe White attention is almost intuitive. Like, it's pretty obvious. Even around the league, people have come to realize that Kobe White is pretty good. While I don't think the actual nuances of his game are well understood by people outside of Bulls fandom, I feel like he's a player that is regularly a little bit misunderstood. He is at least well known to be good. One of the favorites for most improved player. I think personally, no offense to Tyrese Maxey, because I love Tyrese Maxey. He's my favorite player on the Sixers. Not that I love a lot of players on the Sixers, but Kobe White should win most improved player. Maxey got more opportunity this year, and his stats did not improve as much as Kobe's did. Obviously, Kobe did get more opportunity, but he progressively earned that opportunity through the season. He started off the year in the same role that he was in the previous year, but he progressively broke out as the season went along. In this game, 42 freaking points, 6 assists, 9 rebounds, 15 for 21 from the field, which is 71% from the field, 3 for 7 from outside. Just an absolutely phenomenal performance from this guy. Could not miss. In general, what an incredible offensive game from this Bulls team. 73 points in the first half, 40 points in the first quarter. It was actually, as it turns out, 40 points in the first quarter for the Bulls this season. That was the most points that they had scored in any first quarter, which is crazy to me because I feel like literally every other team in the league probably had at least one 40-point first quarter. Damn, it's not that hard to do that anymore, and apparently they hadn't. But anyways, Kobe White's great. Kobe White's going to get a lot of attention, and he deserves it, but I want to focus on Ayo Dosunmu. In this game, 19 points, 3 assists, 1 rebound. Not necessarily the craziest stats in the world, but he did go 8 for 12, which is 67% from the field, 3 for 4 from outside, and he also played some fantastic defense on Trae Young, who finished the game with a negative 27, which is a team worst 22 points on the game on 4 for 12 shooting. He got a bunch of free throws, so his true shooting percentage probably is fine. But in terms of actually putting the ball in the basket, really not much to be found from Trae. Did a good job facilitating with the 10 dimes, but he also got 6 turnovers. not his best showing, and Ayo Dosunmu, amongst some other guys, really did a great job defending him. Alex Caruso was doing a good job defending him before Andre Drummond injured him. Andre Drummond stepped on Alex Caruso's foot at half court while also just running into him, and that could potentially keep him out of the Heat game in the play-in tournament. Speaking of that, I'm going to talk about it more a little bit later. Actually, I'm probably going to do that in another video now that I'm thinking about it. But no Jimmy Butler for the foreseeable future, probably for Miami, which kind of probably means their season is going to be done. Maybe they can beat the Bulls, but if they have to go even a few games against Boston without Jimmy Butler, there's not even a shot that they can make that even close to a series. I'm not all that confident they could make it a series with a healthy Jimmy Butler, but I'm very confident they fucking can't without him. So yeah, that would suck. I think there's a chance they could beat the Bulls without him, as high as I'm feeling on the Bulls right now. But yeah, just wanted to put that update in there, because this video is a mismatch of recording at 2 different times. Let me see, looking at my notes here. Back to Ayo Dosunmu. He had a play where he blocked a DeAndre Hunter fadeaway, and that turned into a fast break where he got the ball up to DeMar DeRozan, who threw down an and-one dunk. DeMar had 18 points in the first half, really took a more reserved role in the second as Kobe White got hotter and hotter as the game went along. Ayo also had a more prominent first half than he did a second. He had 12 points versus 7 in the second half. But yeah, I mean, between the two, Kobe White probably has the higher upside, but Ayo Dosunmu might be the more complete all-around player. Kobe White is a good defender and a good playmaker, and he's a much better scorer than Ayo. He's not a great defender like Ayo is. Ayo sometimes feels like a great playmaker to me, honestly. It really depends how good his handle is feeling that night. Lately, it's been better and better. And then his three-point shooting, like, less self-creation, but more consistent off-ball stuff. Regardless, between the two, I love both of them. I really hope that they stay here. I mean, I really especially love Ayo. Kobe White sometimes annoys me because he can be a little bit inconsistent, but that aside, I like them. I like the role that DeMar DeRozan has on this team. He knows his place. He doesn't try too hard to be the hero. Ironically, I say that with him being basically clutch player of the year, but like, he knows when to defer to Kobe. Like, Kobe was getting hot this game. DeMar DeRozan didn't really do much in the second half because he knew he really didn't need to. So yeah, that's great. Vucevic was really strong in this game. 24 points, hit a couple of three-pointers, couple of hook shots in the lane. Dalen Terry puzzles me. He's the first guy off of the bench for the Bulls at this point. He's very good at defense. I mean, like, very good, like all defense caliber good at defense, like probably already. So that's why he's actually getting run. But as we well know, the defense only not doing much else to contribute to the game wing doesn't really exist in the NBA anymore. It does not have a prominent place. And I just don't know if he can actually be an NBA player because his three ball truly is awful. But he's a strong finisher. He makes good reads. He had a coast-to-coast setup for a Javonte Green three-pointer that I think missed, but it was a nice setup. Yeah, the thoughts on this game are kind of discombobulated, but there wasn't much to add. I also want to talk about DeJounte Murray real fast. I can also talk about the Hawks and their season ending, I guess, what their future looks like, some Trae Young stuff. DeJounte Murray was cooking in this game. He was easily Atlanta's best player. Hit a couple of pull-up three-pointers, and I just had this thought as that shot went in. I was like, damn, it's crazy how much DeJounte Murray improved as a three-point shooter. It's just a shame that it came at the price of his defense, because he's not nearly the defender that he used to be. And honestly, if he was, it probably would have made a world of difference for how this game went for the Atlanta Hawks, because defense in general was the deciding factor in this one. Offensively speaking, 116 points is not a bad showing. The Chicago Bulls are a pretty respectable defense. In fact, I believe if they're not top 10, they're at least in that ballpark. So the fact that the Hawks managed to score 116, you know, their offense was fine, even with Trae Young not really putting the ball in the basket, really relying entirely on getting to the free throw line. The bare minimum, he was producing points, and that's what matters. But no one could stop anything the Bulls were doing. Like, it truly felt like they were getting a good shot every time down the floor. And the Bulls are not a particularly strong offensive team. Sure, they've had moments of the type of synergy that they displayed in this game, but for them to have it for as long as they did, as consistently as they did, first of all, this team was fucking locked in. So give them credit where it's due in that reality. But also, damn, it was super easy to get locked in because there wasn't fucking defense worth shit being played in this game. Like, truly one of the worst defensive showings I've ever seen in a game that was supposed to be like competitive, whether it be play-in or playoff or otherwise. Really bad. Trae Young, bad in this game. DeAndre Hunter was terrible in this game. Onyeka Okongwu surely did not play because I don't remember seeing him at all. There was a lot of Clint Capella in this one. As usual with Clint, his counting stats look good, but his impact on the game felt non-existent. It's like he can catch a lob from Trae Young every once in a while, get back, put back layup. He rebounds all right. He's not the worst defender in the world, but ultimately there's just so much more you could have going on for you at the center position that it's like literally the most generic and bland answer at that position you can probably come up with in the entire league. So yeah, don't really love that. Jalen Johnson wasn't playing. Jalen Johnson's a huge factor. Atlanta is a much better team when he plays, just because he's a versatile, large forward who does basically everything really well. And obviously that's the type of player that every team in the league is fiending for. So him not being there, that definitely matters. But man, I can't say that like Jalen Johnson's the difference between winning this game or not. And I can't say especially that he's the difference between whether or not this team's future is bright or not, because while I think he himself could be pretty good, I don't think it's going to be enough to just be, him and Trae Young, and that's going to be enough. It's probably not. Honestly, the archetype of player that Trae Young is, it just might not be apt for the modern NBA. Like the really small shot creating playmaker is like your lead guy. I mean, the Knicks have managed to pull it off, obviously not to the extent of a title, but they're the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. So you can find success in the NBA, not success necessarily at a championship level, as Becky Hammond has pointed out before and was controversial for no reason, but it doesn't seem like it's an ideal. Okay, that type of player you can't not do a good job building around, essentially. Like, in the perfect ideal world, I think you can build a team that can go to the Eastern Conference Finals with Trae Young, but you have to put a good roster around him. He's not the type of player that can carry a trash heap. He's not that type of, not only is he not that type of player, probably in any context, he's especially not that in this era where there's so many other players that can do what he can do while being 4 to 8 inches taller than him, while being better defenders, if not for the height reason, then just also for being better defenders. I think Trae just needs to be a second option, man. He needs to be a secondary shot creator who is ideally setting up some sort of big man, which is why he needs to play for the San Antonio Spurs. Please do everyone a favor. This would be right for the Spurs. This would be right for Trae. This would be right for the Hawks. The Hawks can build towards a franchise, look for a franchise player that can be more ideal for a modern NBA context, because I just don't think the tiny guard works anymore at all, unless, again, super ideal circumstances. I would just blow it up, personally. And I wouldn't be surprised after this game, after how this went, after how this season went. 2 years into the DeJounte Murray thing, I could see Trae Young being traded this offseason. This might be it. This might be the time it happens. I don't know. But yeah, I would do it personally. I think it's time to end this thing. But yeah, that's it. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and goodbye. God damn it, I hate this fucking mustache.